Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. Welcome to this week's Practice Perfect webinar. I'm David McCarthy. I'm a marketing manager over here at RevenueWell, and I'll be the moderator today. For you, the avid listeners out there who've gotten to know Jonathan's voice these past several months, he has the day off, but he'll be back in a couple of weeks when we break down in-house memberships. Today, though, we have an outstanding webinar. It's on understanding your dental revenue cycle, which has really become a make or break issue for many practices today. So fortunately, we have two experts on the topic. Hosting the webinar are Janet Soda and Rebecca Davis of Dental Insurance Cycle Solutions. Janet is the founder and CEO of the company. She has over 40 years of experience in the dental field. Rebecca is the president of sales and marketing. She's a dental pro with more than 20 years of experience excelling in the areas of accounts receivable and practice management. One small note about the agenda: once Janet and Rebecca finish up, we'll have a quick Q&A, provided there's enough time, so feel free to submit any questions you have, and we'll do our best to get to as many questions as possible. Without further ado, I'll hand over the mic to Janet and Rebecca. Take it away.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Hello, and thank you for joining us. I do want to thank RevenueWell for giving us this opportunity to present this information, which is just such a critical part of your business. As David mentioned, Becky and I have a combined total of about 70 years of experience in the dental industry. We have both been assistants and held positions at the front desk and been practice administrators. While our experience is vast, it also includes the following types of positions. I was the administrator for a general practice residency for about 25 years, and Becky helped build and manage a mobile oral surgery practice. In recent years, we began consulting all over the country with a focus on office systems. And we observed over and over that offices really struggled with managing their revenue cycle. So we developed our company, Dental Insurance Cycle Solutions. Initially, the focus was completely on just insurance. It's expanded a bit into patient receivables. We do assist offices with that as well. But we specialize in helping offices resolve their outstanding insurance claims and their patient balances. We do this through a system that we created that includes verifying patient insurance 5 to 7 days ahead of their appointment, so that if there's an insurance problem, it can be addressed prior to the patient arriving for their appointment. It allows us to create the insurance plans so claims can be submitted clean and the treatment plan estimates can be presented accurately. We help our clients by providing research and recovery for old insurance claims, which is really low-hanging fruit, but typically doesn't get the proper attention in the practices. It grows into a monster that becomes too overwhelming for staff to tackle. So we've helped countless offices recover their money, which makes them very happy. I would like to introduce Rebecca Davis, also known as Becky, and let her just say a few words before we begin. Becky?
Hi there, this is Becky. I just wanted to say that Janet and I are thrilled to be part of this Practice Perfect webinar. We hope you find this information helpful. We are both really passionate about helping dental practices achieve financial success. We find that financial success creates the opportunity to make all other goals become possible. With that, I'll turn it back over to Janet to begin the presentation.
Okay, thanks, Becky. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in and get started. So you've done the work, so why haven't you been paid? Dentistry is one of the few industries where the doctor owner is the CEO, produces the product, and everything in between. One thing we find repeatedly with our clients and when they reach out to us for help is that they know something's wrong, but they don't know exactly how to identify the cause or reason for why their practice is struggling. They've lost sleep over how they're going to make ends meet, and it's just a really stressful way to live. They work so hard to build their practices, bring new patients in, diagnose treatment, and yet they're struggling with the bottom line. So we're going to talk about how you can identify just 3 key metrics in your practice that should be monitored every month. These 3 metrics alone can provide you with the information you need to identify where your challenges are. Once you identify the challenge or the problem, then you can determine how to create a solution. If you don't know how to solve the problem, then reach out to people that can help you. It's always wise to surround yourself with people that are knowledgeable or specialize in various aspects of your practice. So let's talk about those 3 key metrics. The 3 key metrics are determining your collection ratio, your accounts receivable, and your aging insurance. The collection ratio compares your net production to the amount that was collected for that month, and I'll go into further detail on that. Accounts receivable, of course, is the money that is owed to you and or left on the table uncollected. It's a very, very painful thing to look at typically. And insurance aging. This report helps you to determine what amount of money is outstanding from insurance companies. The easiest money to collect, quite honestly, is the outstanding insurance claims. Again, they're low-hanging fruit, and there really is no reason for claims to age out past 30 days. I will tell you that the collection ratio is really the most crucial of all these because it tells you if your money is being collected. The other 2 are important, and they'll help you to determine where some of the problems are. But there can be anomalies in those reports coming out of various practice management software. So you have to be aware of some of those deviations and know how to identify them based on the software that you're using. For example, some software doesn't age insurance claims correctly. So you might look at your insurance aging and think things are okay when in fact they're not. It's important to look at all 3 metrics, and if something doesn't line up, it's critical that you determine what's causing the problem so you can find a solution. So let's talk about the collection ratio. Now, I realize there's a lot going on the screen here, and that this is something that can be a little bit overwhelming. I want to walk you through it. I don't want to belabor it, but I do want to walk you through what each of these pieces are, how you obtain those, and what they mean. So this is basically the formula for how you determine your collection ratio. These numbers can all be collected from your month-end reports. Your practice management software, no matter what software it is, has this information. You just need to know how to collect it. If you're not sure how to generate these reports, we can always help you learn how to run those reports. So let's walk through this formula. First, we obtain your gross production number. This is the total amount produced in the given month at full fee. And unless you are a fee-for-service practice and you don't participate in any insurance plans, this number isn't what is really collectible. Your net production is really the target number for what can be collected. Next, we have the adjustments, and these are adjustments for being in network with insurance plans or other types of adjustments that might be applied to your patient accounts. I want to caution you that this is an area to watch very closely. You should be running an adjustment report either on a daily basis or a weekly basis and reviewing what the adjustments are that are being applied to your accounts. This is a typical area for lost income in practices. It's also an area for fraud. So you want to be very careful about what those adjustments look like. Net production is your total gross production minus the adjustments. And so this number sometimes can be slightly skewed if you're doing, let's say, some account cleanup and additional adjustments are being made that are not applied to the previous month's procedures. But in general, this is a pretty reliable number, especially if it's calculated as an average over several months. So net production really provides you with the amount that should be collected or should be collectible. When you compare net production to collections, That is what determines your collection percentage or ratio. That number should always be, in my opinion, close to 100% and certainly not less than 95%. So to arrive at your collection ratio, you divide your collections by your net production, and that gives you the collection ratio. So hopefully I have explained that well enough that you're able to kind of grasp what I'm going for here. And what I want to do now is I want to apply it, use these formulas with some actual true numbers. So we're going to use this case study from an actual practice, and we're going to look at these real numbers, and they're a good example of what we see repeatedly across the country. The good news is that this case study will demonstrate that your outstanding accounts receivable and insurance claims can be recovered. It does require a specialized skill set and approach, and the approach for this practice, and really all of our practices, is that the problem must be fixed on two fronts. You have to prevent this from continuing to happen by creating systems that work, and you have to research and recover as much of the outstanding insurance claims and balances as quickly as possible. As long as your accounts age and get older, the less likely you are to collect the money. Again, your collection ratio should be no less than 100% or 95%, I guess, is ideal. 100% is even better. And so we're going to look at this, these numbers. So here we have gross production of $144,530, and then the adjustments of $33,093. We're going to subtract the adjustments from the gross production, and that gives us our net production number of $111,437. So moving down to the next part of the equation, the collections were $89,751. And when we divide that number by our net production, that gives us our collection ratio of 62%. That is horrible and very, very painful. This means that $21,686 was not collected in the month of May in this practice. If you extrapolate that amount over 12 months, the uncollected amount is $260,000. So this is a very, very typical scenario that we see a lot. People reach out to us, practice owners, practice administrators, reach out to us when they just don't know why this is happening or how to fix it. It's such an expensive area of loss to a practice, but again, the good news is this can be fixed. So what we'd like to do now is look at the accounts receivable that go along with this collection ratio. So this is the second of the three key metrics. So in this scenario, or in this slide, I brought over a snapshot of the previous slide here at the top so that we can be reminded that, again, we have net production of $11,437. We talk about, the AR should never be greater than 1 to 1.5 times your net production. So in this practice, the AR should not be greater than 111,000, between 111,000 and 167,000. If we go over here and look at the AR, you can see that this AR is 383,000. So it is 3.4 times the amount of the net production. This means that all of this money should have been collected, all of this work was done, and yet it wasn't collected. And the further out that it gets, the harder it is to collect. So here we have over 90 days, $119,000. That gets very, very difficult to collect. The total over 30 days is $278,000. So this practice was really, really struggling. It's a lot of hard work done by the entire team, the doctor, the clinical team, and the hygiene team, for example, and none of it got paid. So while it's painful to look at these numbers, it was their reality. Sorry, I'm getting a little hoarse here. So it was their reality. So let's now look at their insurance aging. And this is also somewhat painful, not somewhat painful, it is painful. And so this demonstrates for you what the amounts were that were in each of these categories. They had $47,000 of claims over 30 days, 58,000, almost 59,000 over 60, and 94,000 over 90. Total outstanding insurance was 288,000 with $200,000 over 30 days. They had 321 claims that were outstanding when we did this analysis. I'm going to put these side by side. I'm going to put the AR and the outstanding insurance claims side by side so you can see that what part of the total AR was made up of insurance. So their May total AR, so this current AR number, for example, showed 104,000, and that includes this $87,000 of insurance. So if we subtract that, that means that there was $17,000 that was not collected in the current month from patients. So not only did claims not go out properly or get submitted properly, there was a lack of collections from patients over the counter. Their total AR of $383,179 minus their total insurance was $94,982, and that amount was not collected from the patients. So these are sizable numbers. At this point, the practice owner was no longer collecting a paycheck because all of the money was going to pay the expenses, and it was a significant problem for this practice. So why was this happening? What was the cause? The cause can be any and all of these plus more, but for the purpose of this discussion, we're going to focus on these three items. The systems were poor systems, which led to a chaotic environment and very minimal results. Their staffing was inexperienced and immature, which is a common issue in many practices. And they had a lack of training, which leads to a breakdown of customer service, systems, verbal skills, and the list goes on and on. I commonly use the example with my teams when I'm doing training about comparing, let's say, McDonald's versus Chick-Fil-A. So when you go into when you go into McDonald's, it's a different environment clearly than Chick-Fil-A. And the main difference is how the folks are trained. They all, in a specific town or city, they all pull from the same hiring pool. So what differentiates how you're treated at Chick-fil-A versus how you're treated at McDonald's? And it's very clearly the expectations that are set on the staff as well as the training. So this practice that we just looked at in our case study had issues in all of these areas. They didn't have proper systems in place to verify their insurance, and their insurance plans weren't entered correctly, so they weren't able to give proper treatment estimates. They were telling patients, we're going to send in a pre-auth to get an estimate for you, and then they either weren't sending the pre-auth in or they weren't following up with the patients when the pre-auth came back. So the patients really just kind of fell off. Typically, they won't call to schedule treatment unless they're in pain, and you have a better success rate of treatment getting scheduled when it's scheduled at the time of diagnosis and presentation. So none of that was happening. They didn't have confidence in providing patient estimates, so that's one of the reasons that they wanted to submit pre-auth, and then the treatment was just lost. They allowed patients to walk out without paying anything toward their portion. They told the patient, "We'll bill you," which is just horrible. And the staff was always in a state of disarray. The front desk was chaotic, and customer service was very poor. We observed patients that were ignored while their greeter was on the phone with an insurance company, or the staff member answered the phone right in the middle of greeting a patient. Just really, really poor customer service. In this office, there were 2 front desk staff members, and they didn't get along. And one in particular was a bully and caused a lot of drama, which could be felt when you approach the desk to check in or check out. The other staff member was sweet, but was just a wreck because of the bully. They were both young and not well trained, and this doctor basically placed his practice, his reputation, and his financial well-being in the hands of these 2 staff members. And this is a common process in dentistry. So having staff that is mature and well-trained is essential to the success of a practice. These 2 girls that were young and had poor verbal skills and provided terrible customer service all translated into a recipe for disaster. And the entire practice's well-being was riding on it. So it sounds very, very frustrating, very sad, and very unfortunate. There were solutions, and we did help them with some of these solutions. So in every practice, these solutions are universal. They'll help whatever practice problems you're having. The biggest key is to get your arms around it, figure out what the problems are. So monitoring your key metrics is so critical. If you don't know how to generate these reports, reach out to someone that can help you. And if you don't know how to interpret them, reach out to someone that can help you, because those metrics are so critical to the success of your practice and to helping you understand exactly where the problems are. So in those examples, we saw clearly money wasn't being collected, claims weren't being submitted, treatment wasn't getting scheduled. It all was had a domino effect on the practice. Develop systems that create logical processes to follow, and observe your staff to make sure these systems are being followed. You need to hire quality staff, get rid of bullies and staff that won't cooperate, and provide the proper training so they have the tools to do a good job. You also need to make sure that you hire the right number of staff members. If you think you can't afford a staff member, look at the amount of money that isn't being collected. In this case study, for example, the practice lost $260,000 per year. If a person with the correct skill set was hired, or in this case, they hired us to manage their revenue, they wouldn't have lost that amount of money and would have easily been $200,000 ahead instead of $260,000 behind. So not hiring the right people, not investing in the right number of staff is really a huge downfall for practices. And I know that's a hard thing to think about, but you really do have to look at those key metrics and say, what am I losing versus what would I gain if I made the investment properly? Finally, don't give up. There are solutions to these problems, and they require making changes that might be difficult, but they're necessary. So I want to show you some good news. I know that this is tough to look at these these very challenging numbers, but I want to give you some of the results that we had over the course of the last few months in helping resolve these problems. And the point of this is, no matter what kind of system or plan you go with, whether you hire somebody in-house or outsource this can be solved. And here is an example of this case study where we're comparing May of 2018 to December of 2018. So again, their AR was at $383,000 in May, and $142,000. I'm sorry, 218,000 was the number in December. So that's a huge amount of change in their AR. It's about $164,000 we were able to help them, manage and resolve. So that money, of course, went right into the doctor's practice. He began being able to take a salary, which was huge. And this AR is kind of now in an acceptable range of that 1 to 1.5 times net production. So again, looking at this, they had net production of $111,000 in May, and there was an increase also in production, which I'll talk about in just a minute. So some of the key changes that we made were that they hired us to help create systems and help we manage their revenue cycle. Staff changes were made in this practice. The bully was eliminated and was replaced with a much more pleasant and mature staff member. Their production increased, which was the result of actually scheduling treatment at the time it was diagnosed, rather than waiting until a pre-authorization came back. The patients were being treated well, so, as they should be. Patients are gold and should be treated as such. They now have positive reviews, and their new patient numbers have increased. And that, again, is the result of patients being treated well and referring their family and friends. The office is no longer chaotic, it's more relaxed, and the entire team is much happier. So we were able to research and recover a large portion of their outstanding AR, particularly their insurance claims, which I will show you on the next slide. There were sweeping changes that were made at this practice, and that's hard, but it was so necessary. It required making some tough changes to the staff. They had to invest in training, and they had to change the culture of the practice. The first few months were very difficult, but the doctor felt the change was worth it and is much happier now and sleeping at night, as well as getting a paycheck. So let's look at the insurance aging on the next page. So again, we're comparing what the numbers look like between May and December. Their outstanding insurance was reduced by $128,000. So between $288,000 and $159,000, the amount over 30 days from $200,000 to $86,000, as well as a reduction in the number of outstanding claims. So how did we do this? Well, this was done with what I call a full court press, and offense and defense. So the defense is, let's prevent this problem that was happening in May from continuing, prevent claims from being delayed, and make sure every single patient is checked for eligibility and that their plan is set up correctly. That way claims can be submitted correctly and they come back quickly. Offense was, we went after the ball. We immediately went to work on research and recovery of old claims. Now, there's still $86,000 outstanding of claims over 30 days, but we've made significant progress in collecting on these old claims. Again, when old claims, are left on the books, it's difficult to collect some of those because most of the time it's related to inaccurate patient information not being collected, and then we have to reach out to the patient to try to get that information. And so we've made great strides in cleaning up their old claims, but there's still more to go. So we always tell clients that when your AR is in the condition that this was, for example, in May, it's going to take 6 to 12 months of hard recovery work. But as you can see, we have recovered a significant amount, and our goal ultimately for this practice and for all our practices is our gold standard of no claims over 30 days. And we will achieve that for this practice within the next few months. One of my practices has 3 claims over 30 days, no claims over 60, and no claims over 90. And that is a very happy practice owner because we were able to achieve that. So we're super proud of what the systems we've created and the way that we can help practices either through training and support or helping manage their revenue cycle. So I want to thank you for your time and attention today. I hope I've given you some useful tools and information and some hope that if you are struggling with your AR, that this can be solved with the right people and resources. Here is our contact information. Becky would be the person that you would email, and she can help sort out and discuss with you what your needs are. We have our website at dentalinscs.com, and this is the revenue cycle that we do help manage with our clients. I want to thank Jonathan and David and RevenueWell again for allowing us to present this information. We're so honored to have been given this opportunity, and I am going to go ahead and turn this back over to David for now.
Thanks, Janet, for that outstanding presentation. We do have some time remaining for Q&A, so let's dive in. The first question that we received is on collection ratio. Can you talk a little bit more about collection ratio and what it means?
Sure. So let me try to just go back to that screen. So again, the collection ratio is telling you what is really being collected against net production. In this case, 62% is completely unacceptable. You don't get to go to any store and say, I'm only going to pay you a portion of what the goods are that I want. And this is what basically happened in these scenarios is patients are seen, they're provided with care, usually exceptional care, and they don't pay for their services. And therefore, the collection number is abysmal. So there's no reason that any practice should not be able to collect their net production. And if they have receivables, it should be even greater than that. Because if you're working your old receivables, you should be collecting that money and then able to collect what you're currently producing, this is where the gap is typically in all practices. So 62% of collections or of net production is just an unacceptable number. We need to be able to collect 100%. That's what's produced, and that's what should be collected.
Great. The next question we have is, one of the causes you noted is training. Do you have any other specific tips on training teams and where to start?
Sure. Training teams, I think, is one of the most critical pieces that you can invest in for your office. It's really an investment in verbal skills. It's the difference between what is said and the way it's said, and how it's presented to the patient. Verbal skills, I think, are a key part of that. And having the team be knowledgeable and confident in what they're doing. It translates into good customer service. And good customer service is huge. Dentistry is a very competitive market, and so having a team that's well trained, has a good attitude, they work together well, they understand all of these different metrics and understand what they're contributing to, including in that the culture of the practice. What is the culture of the practice? What is the attitude of the people? That translates to your patients very, very quickly. It can be felt, so to speak, in the air. So having well-trained staff, having a good culture in your practice makes for a very productive environment, a happy environment, and patients that will send you other patients, which is the key to this process of building your practice.
The next question we have is, what is the most important factor in keeping insurance ANR low?
I think the most important factor is making sure that all of the patients that are scheduled today had their insurance verified a week ago, and their insurance plans are correctly entered so that insurance can be submitted properly, estimates can be given to the patients properly, and treatment plans can be presented and scheduled properly. Those things are really, truly the foundation of having a practice be successful financially.
The next question we received is from a fee-for-service office, and they ask, we struggle with patient estimates due to fee schedules and allowable amount. Do you have any ideas on how to resolve this?
Typically when you're a fee-for-service office, and it depends on the software that you're using, you can build what's called a payment table. So I'll use Dentrix as an example. Dentrix has a payment table that allows you to put in what is actually covered on procedures. Now, it takes time to build history. So if you're a fee-for-service office, you might want to reduce the percentage of what is going to be covered by like 10 or 15%. And what I mean by that is if you collect insurance information and it says that their coverage on fillings is going to be 80%, reduce that to 70 or 65% so that you're giving a more accurate estimate while you're building what's called the payment tables. The payment tables will then trump any of the percentages and give you accurate estimates based on prior treatment that was done. That is the best way, in my opinion, to manage fee-for-service. And typically you have, sort of industries in your area or businesses in your area where you have a lot of patients from that group, and you can build those payment tables relatively quickly. And that makes a huge difference.
The next question we received is what are some of the signs of a system that needs to be improved?
Well, certainly the numbers that we just looked at are clear signs of that. But I think if you're not looking at these numbers, you have a gut feeling that there's something wrong. If you have a gut feeling that there's something wrong, do something about it. Figure out what's wrong. Don't just keep saying, oh, I don't know, I'm not going to do anything about it. Your gut is always your best guide. And so reach out to somebody that can help you, a consultant, to us, somebody that can help you figure this out. Because if you feel something is wrong and you're struggling with finances or making ends meet, there is something wrong. And it's any number of those things that we talked about, where it could be training, it could be staffing, it could be any combination of those things. So you really do know that there's a problem. You just don't know what it is.
All right, well, that wraps up today's webinar and Q&A. Many thanks to Janet and Rebecca of Dental Insurance Cycle Solutions for this incredible webinar. And thanks to everyone on the line for joining us. We'll send out a recording of the webinar by tomorrow, and we hope to see you in a couple of weeks when Jordan Comstock dives into the nitty-gritty of in-house memberships. Until then, I hope you have a great rest of your week and a great weekend. Thank you.